Welcome, my name is Lorenz. I'm the co-founder of Sutra.co. Sutra is a social learning platform designed to help you create courses and communities that invite meaningful connection and conversation. In this video, I would like to share with you the single biggest insight that has transformed the way that I approach everything as an entrepreneur. And that insight is the power of not knowing. You might be wondering, what does not knowing have to do with getting something done and being a creator? And that's what I would like to explore with you today. The first distinction that I will offer is that there is a difference between I don't know and not knowing. Very often, I don't know is I know that I don't know. It energetically closes a situation and keeps you from being in genuine relationship with what might be there, inquiry, discovery. Not knowing embodies qualities of receptivity and humility and curiosity that ultimately lead to discovery, to learning something new about yourself, about another person, about a situation, about how you can truly be in service of something that wants to emerge. I want to illustrate this with a personal story. A few years ago, around 2015, I was on a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and about 4 or 5 days in, this person started coming up for me, someone that I was very close to, but more often than not kind of triggered me or challenged me. And for some reason, they were coming up in my meditation, and I was feeling really bothered by this. Why is this person coming up while I'm sitting in silence 10 hours a day? And after wrestling with it for a while, what I realized was that they were really confident about something that was meaningful to me, but that ultimately I was not so sure about. They were really confident about spirituality, about how the universe works, about how to manifest things, about how to be in relationship with God. And these things are deeply important to me, but I didn't have this confidence about how the universe works and how to manifest whatever I wanted. And what I realized that by really being authentic with myself about that not knowing, I actually could transform my relationship to the whole situation. Because if I don't know, then what does that leave me with? It leaves me with curiosity and inquiry. And when I reframed the situation that way, I realized that it actually brought me closer to the mystery of God. You know, who am I to know this? But if I can know that I don't know, I can actually be in relationship, in a much deeper and closer relationship with that mystery. And that opened up a lot of territory for me that since then I've actually taken into every other aspect of my life, every relationship that I have, as well as how I approach, how I create anything. So how is this relevant to you as an entrepreneur? And this is what I would like to explore in the rest of this video. I'll illustrate with another story. In 2012, I raised $600,000 to work on an e-commerce platform for independent creators. And what it let people do was to set up an online storefront really easily. But one of the key features was it allowed people to cross-promote each other's products. What we were trying to do was to build a global ecosystem of mutual support, of people sharing knowledge and resources and audiences. And we had this big vision, hired a team, spent $25,000 a month for a whole year building out the product. In the end, we released the product and nobody really wanted it. We had a really hard time getting engagement. We had a really hard time figuring out how to make the product work for people in the way that they would actually use it. And I share this with you to illustrate a situation where we had a really big vision, a really big idea, but ultimately we were too caught up in what we knew to really validate that idea in a way that might have been much faster, much simpler, and much more cost effective. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building something out before we let anyone in the outside world actually touch it or give us feedback on that. So in 2015, after that whole process with Heartbeat pretty much wrapped up and ended, I felt inspired to start a new company. And around that time, it also encountered two bodies of work that had a big influence on me, which was Theory U and Lean Startup. Theory U, Otto Scharmer Presencing Institute. It's an awareness-based methodology for systems change. And lean startup, if you've been in the world, in the startup world at all, is a methodology for building new companies. The common thread between these two bodies of work is that they both revolve around prototyping, around trying something simple in the real world, gathering feedback, using that to inform subsequent action. And the heart of this approach is not knowing, is that you don't really know what you think you know, and so you identify your assumptions and you find really simple ways to test those assumptions in the real world. And this is really the biggest difference between knowing and not knowing, is that when you know, it creates the conditions for right and wrong, success and failure. And when you don't know, it creates the conditions for learning. Not knowing is an infinite green field of discovery. And this makes all the difference as a creator, as a human being, whatever you're trying to create in the world. If you approach it from an orientation of humility and wholeheartedness, but half-shoredness, right? To be wholehearted, but half-sure in the way that you approach something, and to keep things as simple as possible. How do you apply this in your life? The trick with not knowing is that you never know. As soon as you think you know, and now I know what not knowing is, right? That's the trap. So the reality of not knowing is that it's about being in relationship, in a moment-to-moment relationship with life, and finding simple ways to identify your assumptions, your biases, your subtle arrogance, and finding ways to test out into the real world through conversation, through bringing together a group of people. And this is really the power of prototyping, because the other side of not knowing is prototyping. And one of the most powerful ways to prototype something is just to bring people together, create a Zoom call, or create a landing page for a Zoom call, see how many people sign up, or just put out an email to 50 people or 5 people and see how many people respond. What are some really simple ways that if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to create something in the world, which inevitably involves other people, what are some really simple ways you can test your ideas? Because ultimately, if you're doing something that involves other people, the truth of the situation isn't what they necessarily tell you, it's what they do. So if they sign up for something, that's the truth. If they show up for something, that's the truth. If they pay for something, that's definitely the truth. So if you're building a business, if you're an entrepreneur, the power of not knowing is finding really simple ways to validate your ideas. And if you have a big vision, a big idea, what are some simple ways that you can approach that? What are some simple stepping stones toward that vision that you can test today, tomorrow, or in the next few weeks, and not in the next 5 years, or with some enormous investment of time and energy? All right, I hope that has been helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course, I'm sharing a video here about not knowing. What do I know about not knowing? As I mentioned, this is a continuous discovery process, so I would love to hear from you about your experience with not knowing. How has not knowing something served you? Has anything I shared with you here opened up anything for you? Please share a comment below. So much love.